Alright guys, this is the Bear. I am with the Bushi Budo Dojo, and I'm going to do my tips and tricks for how to do forms, kata, pumase, hiyang, tool, whatever you want to call them. It is my tips and tricks. Alright, just how to get better with your kata, how to get better with your forms. Alright, so my first tip is basically, and it's just the most basic tip. You have to know the moves. You have to know the movements, and you have to know them really well. You're not going to be good at your form if you're stumbling through the movements, or you're in the middle of your form and you have to think about what you're going to do. All right. So if you're in the middle of what I call Kicho 1 or Teikyoku 1, and you're trying to remember that I have to do a down block, and you're like, this is what I'm going to do, you're not going to remember to prepare or to cover or what position to put your hands in. So you're going to be thinking from your ready position, you're going to be, okay, where do I go? And so this is a really bad look, all right? So one, we have to be ready and prepared and know the movement before we can go into the movement, right? So if I don't know this, then we already have a bad form. We already have a bad kata, right? So that's number one. Have all of the moves ready, okay? And if your instructor is breaking it down into sections, then know your section. Know the section that you're presenting, okay? But you have to know the movements that you're required to know, all right? So if you want to have a really good form, really good kata, really good pumase or hiyang, or tool, or whatever y'all call them, then you have to know the movements, and you have to know them really well, all right? So the second part to all that is you have to know the purpose of those movements, okay? So if you're doing a lower end block, or you're doing a low block, okay, or a down block, whatever you're calling it. So for our Kicho 1, that's the first movement, right? It's coming down. Wherever your style tells you to put it, you have to know what's the purpose for this, okay? So if I'm keeping it too close to my body in this case, right here, see, is it serving its purpose, right? Okay, so some styles say to end it here, so it has its purpose for ending here. Our style, we end it right in front of the knee, and we have about 1 to 2 fists in front, so that we know, right, that we're sweeping away that leg, okay? But then we also have another purpose. Let's say someone's grabbed our wrist, all right? When we prepare, we're bringing it up and then shooting it down. It doesn't just have that low block purpose, right? So we have more than one purpose, but we have to know what those purposes are, okay? If you don't know those purposes, you're not going to have that. You're not going to have as great a kata as you possibly can. You're not going to have as great a form as you possibly can. All right? So knowing what purposes each one of your moves has is going to give you a better form. All right? And then next, once you know those purposes, then it's good to always say, you know what, my defensive moves, okay? Because when we're beginners, we just have this tendency to like the offensive move better, right? We like to throw those punches really hard in forms. So a lot of times, as a judge, what I notice is that we'll see students throw a block, and it's not really that hard, right? They just put it down. But then the next move is down really hard, right? So that offensive move has a lot more power than the defensive move, where there should be an equality of movement. Your defense should just be as strong as your offense. So a good idea might be to practice that defensive move like it's an offensive move. Maybe when I'm going down on that movement, right, or I'm coming across on this movement, or across on this movement, or up on this movement, I'm thinking of this as a strike. I'm not thinking of it as just a block. This is a strike at the same time, all right? So I'm striking with my high block. I'm striking with my inside block. I'm striking with this outside block. Okay? So this, your defense is an offensive move. And think of your offense as a defensive move. So when I'm coming in, I'm avoiding, okay? This movement becomes a defense, and my offense is part of my defense, right? So they're equally, okay? There's an equity of movement. They're equally strong. There's an equal amount of power, right? Because we don't want to separate those, okay? We don't want one stronger than the other. They have to be equal, all right? So that's one of the things we need to think about when we're doing forms. Is my offense stronger than my defense? Is my defense stronger than my offense? What's going on there, all right? This next one is about making your form overall good, all right? A lot of times, and I see this a lot in beginners, or really I see it a lot in that intermediate belt range, is you know the form really, really well. So now you decided, I know it, I'm really good at it, I'm just gonna run through it. Okay? I wanna get to those harder forms. I wanna get to the more advanced forms, so I'm gonna run through these early forms, I'm gonna go through them really, really fast. Okay? That's a really bad idea, because that's when you're gonna develop your bad habits, all right? This is when you should be going slower, all right? A lot slower, okay? Remember that slow is fast, okay? When you slow things down, okay, and I'm gonna use punching as the example. If I slow things down, I'm gonna notice, okay, I'm gonna notice really small, intricate details that I am messing up, okay? So if I feel, see, I feel that elbow coming up, but I'm going super slow. Now I can pay attention to keeping my elbows in and closer to my body. But if I was just throwing it as fast as I could, I'm not gonna notice that elbow flaring up, okay? Okay, so when you're practicing your form, okay, slow equals fast. So as I'm practicing this slow, I'm gonna notice little things. And the slower I go, the more I'm gonna notice those. And so I wanna go slow and get the muscle memory to remember to keep those close to my body. Now, over time, then I can speed that up once I've repaired that, and that equals fast. That's gonna equal fast and right, okay? So slow equals fast. Slow equals smooth, fast and smooth. So do your form, do your kata slow, right? Half speed, okay? All right, so I'm not saying train it all the time at half speed, but do it quite a few times at half speed in order to find the little details that aren't quite correct. All right. Now break it down. Break your kata down. Break your form down to 4 moves at a time. Do the first 4 moves. And only do those first four moves. And do that for a repetition 20 times. Only the first 4 moves. All right? Then do the next 4 moves. Then do the next 4 moves. All right? Break your kata down into small sections, in small chunks. All right? Do the first 4 moves. And once you've done that, then start off on move number, let's say 6, and then do 6 through 10. Starting on move number 12 and do 12 through 16, or start on 13 and go 13 through 17 so that it finishes in an odd section, but so that you know that form really, really well. Then break it down even farther. just go to one move and repeat that move over and over again. Find a move that is extremely difficult for you until that move is no longer difficult. All right? One of the practices I really like when doing a form is to do something I call 3 times perfect, 3 times in a row. So I like to go to one move, 1. Okay? That's 1. 2, 3. That's 3 times. All right? Now I have to do that 3 times perfect, 3 times in a row. So I would do that again. So that equals 9. But let's say on number 7, I mess up. I forget to cover. I start from here and go down. I have to start over again because I need to do it 9 times perfect in a row. Okay, that's 3 times perfect, 3 times in a row. All right, so that means that I don't have this move quite where I need it to be. All right, so that's how I train Kata. That's how I make my students train Kata, is to make them do it, a move 3 times perfect, 3 times in a row before they can go to the next step. All right, and that trains muscle memory. You have to stop. Okay, what didn't you do? I didn't cover. I didn't prepare. I don't have this preparation in the right spot. Maybe I'm too low. Okay, some schools start at the shoulder. They didn't prepare at the shoulder. I bring it up a little bit higher. Crisscross, covering the body. Okay, if those things aren't right, then they have to start over again. They're not bringing that chamber back far enough. It's leaving it too far up. All those things make for a better or greater looking kata, a more a kata that is closer to perfect. That's what we strive for. We strive for excellence, knowing that we're never going to reach it, but we can always go after it a little bit more. All right. One of the things that a lot of beginners, or a lot of, maybe it's not just beginners, maybe it's just all across the spectrum, is that we forget that kata has a flow to it. All right. That there is, it's our own personal flow, right? It's kind of the way that's going to develop into our sparring technique, but that there's a rhythm. It's our own personal rhythm, right? So when we do kata, we come in and then we move, right? There's a flow to that. But that flow should not be, there's not a move and then another movement. Every movement should be distinct, right? But you shouldn't look like a robot when you're doing your form. It should not be right. You should have a rhythm to it, all right? So that's very important, because that's going to help you even in sparring find the rhythm of the fight, right? Because it's going to change from fight to fight, from sparring match to sparring match, but it helps you find your own personal rhythm, all right? And your own distinct rhythm, all right? But every move in a form, in a kata, should be distinct, but it should flow from movement to movement. All right, the next one. It's a lot easier to teach beginning students to go to a stance and then do the block and then do the action, okay? But that does beginning students disservice, because now you've taught them, you're starting to teach them a muscle memory that takes out hip action. So you've taught them to move and then do an action. So you've actually taken out all hip action, when especially in harder styles, the hips are what leads the action. Because I've covered, my hips lead that action. When I step, okay, there's an opening of the hips, and that leads the punch. Your punch should be led by the hips. It shouldn't be led by the shoulder, and it should be thrown by the shoulder. It should be thrown by the hips. So when I'm stepping, and moving, all of this should come to one singular point, being led by the hips. So when my lower body stops, my upper body is coming to a stop also. It should not be step, then punch, because now I've taken all the power away that I've generated with my hips. Okay? So your movement and your action should almost stop at the exact same time. All right? Your generation of power should be coming through that hip movement. Right? So you should not be stepping, stopping. Now I've taken all that movement or all that power that I've generated out of my hips and taking it out. Okay? So when I'm coming through, all right, I'm generating that power out of my hips. It should not be move, throw. It should be the hips leading the action. Okay? And that hand is moving with that, right? Whatever you want to call it, balance, yin, yang, yin, yo, whatever you want to call that symbol, when one moves, the other moves. And it's the same thing in form, okay? There's that balance. Lower body to upper body to lower body, all right? But there's a flow to that which goes to the previous step that we talked about, right? But we want that action to happen at the exact same time. That's what gives you the snap. It should not be your upper body doing all of the power. There's more power when you generate out of the hip. All right, so the next one, there's an old saying, I don't know who created it, I don't know who devised it, but the saying is this, all right? If you can see your opponent when you're doing a form, then you have a good form, or you have a good kata. If there's other people around and they can see your opponent, then you have a great kata. You have to visualize your opponent, all right? That opponent should be about your same height, all right? Should be about your same weight, okay? It should almost be like you're fighting yourself, all right? But you should be able to visualize an opponent while you're doing your kata, while you're doing your form, all right? I'm not going to say that every kata is necessarily a fight, okay, or because it's they're prearranged movements. Now, you can extract self-defense movements from your kata, okay, and some of those self-defense movements have been lost, all right, but you can search for them in your kata if you can visualize an opponent. You can search for, what does this mean? All right, so one of the forms we do at our school is known as Palage 1, or Palage Ildu, okay? So that movement has a knife hand block, okay, and an inside to outside block, or a knife hand block and an outside to inside block, depending on which version you do. So for us, if you think about it, we're doing a block to the nerves, or we're doing a block to the outside, and then we're stepping in and we're doing a break in this instance, right? Grabbing the hand and doing a break. So that's what I have my students visualize: blocking, stepping in, and breaking. Okay? So, but you have to visualize an opponent. You just can't say, I'm going to put my hands out there really soft, I'm going to do a break really soft, right? So when we're stepping in, it's hard, because we're going to hit the arm, and then we're going to grab, and it has to be a hard inside to outside break, because that block is now a strike. It's a strike to break an elbow, all right? A strike to the joint. It can't be soft, but you have to visualize, see your opponent, all right? So that's very important in order to come up with a good or great kata. The next one is, or the last one that I'm going to talk about, is focus and breath, all right? A lot of times we'll see students holding their breath while they're doing their form, all right? So they start, and then they begin, and it's just and they don't want to breathe, all right? And that's very, very hard, because if you have even a basic 20 step form, that could take about 30 seconds. Holding your breath while moving and executing all those steps for 30 seconds, that's difficult, especially if you're executing them with power, right? A student could pass out at the end of that. We need to teach them to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, right? Which brings us to that key up, right? Key up, most forms have about 2 key ups in every form, right? And that's expelling the breath, right? But every move has to be a breathe in and breathe out. Now, I'm not saying they have to be audible, right? Some styles have a very audible at every movement, right? But if your style doesn't do that, it should still be breathing, natural breathing, right? All the way through, get to your key up, out, right? Every movement, all right? Because one, that's going to get your students to focus, right? Be in the moment of that kata, not anywhere else, not focusing over here, not focusing over there, but be very focused in the kata, be very focused and mindful of what they're doing, and breathing, okay? So that's, that should be 10 steps or 10 tips and tricks for doing your kata, for doing your form, all right? So I hope you really liked my video. All right, I hope you got something out of it. It may not be for everyone, and I understand that. All right, but I'm Rene Garza with the Bushi Budokai Dojo. All right, if you liked what you saw, then hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and we'll be talking to you soon.